Welcome back to Beyond the Helmet. And of course, that is hashtag BTHpod if you're following on social media. I'm your host, Steve McGrath. And today it is just my pleasure continues with these guests that I'm able to have come on and talk about their experiences on and off the field. Today, we're going to learn from a Chiefs Hall of Famer, someone that's a national champ, has been to a Pro Bowl, but he's also an author. So we're going to talk about some of the things he's done since then. It's none other than Tim Grunhard. Grunny, how are we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on and all those great people you have in your background. I hope I can live up to the standards that you've already guys have set. So this is great and looking forward to visiting with you guys.
I'm going to have to get your picture on the wall. And now that you're on, it's official. We're going to have to seal the deal. But, you know, of course, it takes a little while for us to sort of schedule these sort of calls. And one of the things that happened between me reaching out and this is Tyreek Hill got traded. So, of course, I want to get into all the things you're doing. But from the jump, just being a Chiefs legend and everything that they've done since you've played, I know you got your finger on the pulse of the team. What's your knee-jerk reaction to this move?
Well, first of all, Tyreek gave Kansas City six great years and brought the Chiefs to a bunch of AFC championships and won a Super Bowl and two Super Bowls at that. But you know, it's part of the business. It hurts. It hurts Kansas City. You know, a lot of people invested a lot of time and invested a lot of their heart with Tyreek Hill. And, you know, when he leaves, it sometimes feels like, you know, he's abandoning us. He's leaving us. He doesn't believe in us, but it's part of the business. You know, I think the Chiefs offered him a pretty good deal. But when the Adams deal came up, I think he said, hey, listen, I want to get paid more than that. So what I've heard is that the Chiefs had a good deal set for him. He was all ready to take it. And then the Adams deal came through and he said, hey, I want more. And the Chiefs said, we just can't do that. So, you know, you move on. And I wish Tyreek a lot of success in Miami, other than when he plays the Kansas City Chiefs. But you know, listen, the Chiefs will go on. And the one thing about the NFL, it's all about change. There's always going to be change. You know, there's a lot of guys that I played with that were my best friends. And then all of a sudden they get traded or cut and you never see them again. And so it's a different living. It's a different thing to deal with. But now that Tyreek is gone, the Chiefs have got a bunch of cap room. They got a bunch of draft picks. So kind of the New England, the Patriot way, you know, trade somebody while they're at the top, get those picks, start rebuilding again. And I think the Chiefs will do a great job. Listen, they still have Patrick Mahomes and they still have Andy Reid. So with those two guys, you still got a chance.
The great equalizer, Pat Mahomes out there. We're going to see. And I have faith, you know, that they're going to be able to make it work. They signed Juju Smith-Schuster and that kid from Green Bay, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So they're reloading, as you said. So it goes.
You know, the crazy thing about it, they keep signing guys with these long names. It's hard for us radio and TV guys to do this job anymore. You know, it's all these
everyone needs a nickname. Yeah,
that's right. So. Yeah, they need to just go find some Smiths and some Joneses and those kind of people. But listen, it's great that they're bringing in some guys, and you know, Smith-Schuster is a great leader. He's going to be great for that room. And Valdes-Scantling, is that how you say his nname? I believe.
I'm not the authority, but I think.
But he's one of the fastest guys in the NFL. Obviously, not quite up to Tyreek's abilities, but he's pretty close. So. You know, the Chiefs signed him for 3 years, $30 million. So, you know, they saved a bunch of money in that cap, and they're going to have some room to do some things in the offseason, and that's what they're going to have to do.
Definitely. Well, one of the things that the Chiefs, maybe not so much on the personnel side, but what they're doing, what the NFL is doing is looking to Europe. Yeah. And I don't fully understand all the scaffolding of different teams are allocated different countries in Europe, but certainly I believe the Chiefs are looking at Germany, and you are going to be one of the ambassadors heading over there, part of the spearhead of, I guess, sort of establishing some sort of relationships out there, some fan base interaction. Can you please tell me what is on the schedule? How is this shaping out?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So a week from today, I'll be roaming around Munich, Germany. And basically the schedule is we're going to go out and go to a lot of the different historical sites in Munich, go kind of where the public goes. I guess there's some river or two rivers that kind of connect in Munich that people surf on the river because of the current. There's these huge waves. So who would think that there'd be surfing in Munich when it's 4 or 5 hours away from the nearest ocean? So things like that. We're going to go there. We're going to meet with people. We're going to do some social media stuff. We're going to do some TV stuff. A lot of the stuff that we're going to do is going to be for German TV, which will be very, very interesting. But we'll also be streamed back here. We're going to be on Good Morning Football. It'll be Dante Hall and I. So very, very happy to be there. Now, listen, the last time the Chiefs had a presence in Germany, I played in the game. They played in Berlin in 1990, right after the wall fell. And I'll never forget walking into East Germany with Mike Webster, you know, my mentor. He said, "Hey, Grunny, let's go deep into East Germany and see what it's like in there." So we got on some trains, planes, and automobiles, or whatever it was, and got into East Germany and looked around there. And it was really crazy to see the difference between Western Germany, West Germany, and East Germany. So I was there with the Chiefs for a week. We played against the LA Rams, and then I coached in NFL Europe in Cologne for the Cologne Centurions for a year. So I have a little experience in Germany and the German people, and with a name like Grunhard, that's not a bad way to start. But very excited to go out there and rep the Chiefs and the NFL. The Chiefs are trying to put together a game there, whether it's this year or not. There's just a lot of things going on, as we all know. Just turn the TV on. So we're still going to go out there, and whether the Chiefs play there or not still remains to be kind of seen here. But very excited to go there. So then the next day we're going to go to an Army base about 4 hours away from Munich, and spend some time with our military there. And gosh, right now they're on high alert with all this stuff going on. So it'll be good for them to have a little bit of a break and take a little bit of the tension and stress off that's been going on there. Maybe talk a little football, sign some autographs, and I'll let Dante Hall run around with those guys. I'm too old and beat up to be running around with those guys, but I will be there also. And then Sunday we're going to be kind of going out and tasting and going to all the different restaurants in Munich and doing some social media stuff that way. So really, it's just a couple football players showing up in Munich, Germany, right in the soccer hub of the world, and trying to spread and teach people about this great game of football and the NFL brand.
Yeah, I had no idea about the 1990 experience you had going there. I would have assumed that this would have been the first Chiefs exploration out there for you, but seemingly got a little experience under your belt. And I think it's such an incredible experience. Like, how many guys are going to be able to represent the league and a team to go out there and basically almost be toted around as ambassadors? I mean, sounds like just an incredible opportunity.
It's a great honor to represent the NFL and represent the Kansas City Chiefs. And so last time we were in Berlin, and it was a preseason game, but it was against the Rams, and just had a great time. We practiced right there in Berlin in the fields that they used to do the training for the armies in Germany. And then we were also in the stadium where they had the Olympics, where we played the game. So a lot of history, a lot of fun stuff. And I'm sure we'll have a little bit of that too. Hey, listen, I think it's important. And listen, I understand that the bread is buttered here in the United States for the NFL, and it always will be. But I do think that the European market is something that the NFL needs to tap into. I think they've done a great job in London. You watch those games; they're always packed, and people really enjoy going to those games. But Germany is a football crazy place. And I think it'd be great for these teams like the Chiefs. And I think the Bucks may be a team also that have been allocated to Germany. So there's going to be maybe a couple other ones. But I think that that's part of the reach and part of the greatness of spreading not only our culture and spreading the goodwill of the United States and America into Europe, but also spreading this great game of football that we enjoy so much. And if we can get those in the households in Germany and Italy and in London and all over in France, that can't do anything but help the NFL brand.
Absolutely. So obviously you're spending time you're a Chiefs lifer from the guy that didn't know where Kansas City was on the map when you got the call. Man, your entire life has just been so interwoven into everything Chiefs. So for you to be an ambassador, it's like so many years after you've played, but so I say all this because, just this past year, you get inducted into the Chiefs Ring of Honor. What's it like for you? Because, the distance between the last time you put on the helmet to sort of almost get over that, understand that's a different part of your life, and maybe in a sense move on. And of course, you're doing radio. You're such a part of the community still. What was it like for you getting that call? Because I'd imagine it, to a sense, maybe you kind of put to bed that ever being a real possibility.
Yeah, I did. There's a lot of great players that are coming up, so I kind of got in at the right time. Derek Johnson and Dante Hall and some other guys that I'm sure are going to be up there pretty soon. Trent Green. So yeah, I was down in Florida, and the phone rang. It was on my cell phone, and it was a Texas number. And I thought, somebody's trying to get me to, renew my car mortgage or whatever. So I didn't answer. I'm not answering. I didn't know who it was. I'm not going to answer the phone. So left a message, which is unique because a lot of times, those spam calls are not going to leave messages. So I listened, and it's Clark Hunt. Would like to talk to you. And I was like, oh my gosh. I called him right back. I said, I'm apologize, Clark. I thought that this was a scam call. And he's like, I didn't recognize the number. And he said, no problem. And we talked a little bit about the ambassador program that we're doing. He didn't jump right into it. He talked a little bit about the Super Bowl. They've just come off losing the Super Bowl to Tampa Bay, and how we need to get some linemen and do some things like that. And they said, oh, and by the way, we want to induct you into the Chiefs Ring of Honor and Hall of Fame. And there was tears coming down my eyes. I was just so humbled. My wife is looking at me like, what's wrong? What's wrong? I said, I just got into the Hall of Fame. So it was awesome. And, to your point, you always think that, I played 11 seasons with the Chiefs at a fairly high level, 120 some games in a row and 169 total starts. And you thought, well, when you retire, within 5 or 6 years, you may have an opportunity to go into the Ring of Fame or Hall of Fame because you're a lifer and you were there a long time and we won a lot of football games. Not a lot of stats for offensive linemen. So I couldn't say, well, I scored this many touchdowns or I did, this many catches or threw this many yards passing. So you kind of at the whim or kind of at the mercy of the people that are voting for the Hall of Fame. So 20 years later, fast forward 20 years later or so, it just worked out great for me because all of my kids, my son Colin played football at Notre Dame, my daughter swam at Notre Dame, my other daughter swam at St. Louis University, and my oldest son is very, very active in sports. And they know how hard it was. They know how hard it is to succeed. And sometimes you don't get some of the recognition and some of the things that you feel like you earned. And they understood that. So it was really a great time for me because they kind of understood a little better. If they were 10, 11, 12 years old, they wouldn't have really cared that much. I mean, they would have cared, but they wouldn't have understood it. So at 22, 23, and 24, they really understood it. And it was really great for me that they were able to be there and be a part of it and know how hard it is to get to that level.
Absolutely. I what a great point, what a great time, just everything lining up the way it did. So I would imagine that you started writing your book before you knew that this was happening.
I did. Yeah. And, so the guy that I'm writing the book with, David Smale, I couldn't tell him. Because they didn't want anybody to know until they had the announcement in May. So I kept saying, well, I got an announcement coming up. And he's like, what is it? I said, I really can't tell you. And we're going to have to kind of wait. So when the announcement came out, I said, man, this could be great for the book. But I'll tell you, I never thought I would write a book, but I always wanted to share my experience of kind of growing up, going through the high school and college years of recruiting and all that kind of stuff. Because I mean, I wasn't one of the best athletes on the field. I wasn't one of the biggest guys. I was kind of an overachiever and kind of lucked out. Basically, was offered a scholarship in Minnesota with Lou Holtz. Notre Dame didn't offer me. They wanted nothing to do with me when Jerry Faust was there, and he carried the scholarship over. In fact, I tell you, I write about it in the book. I was working at Walgreens. I was stocking shelves. I think I was putting the Menem deodorants up in the hall there, and my boss comes up and says, hey, you got a phone call. I'm like, who's calling me? My mom or dad are calling me. And so I got on the phone. Tim Grunhard, this is Lou Holtz. We would like you to come and visit us this weekend at the University of Notre Dame. Now, he didn't offer me a scholarship yet, right? I mean, he just wanted me to come and visit. And I'm like, who is this? I thought it was one of my buddies, busting my balls a little bit about, or like, kind of pushing my buttons. And I thought right after he said, hey, we got a party going to, come meet us at the party. And they would be all laughing in the background. And I'm like, who is this? And he's like, this is Lou Holtz. And at that point, I'm like, oh my gosh, did I screw this thing up? So he said, yes, sir, I'll be there this weekend. And was able to go with my mom and dad. Of course, they said, you're going to make the decision. This is your decision. Now, these are two hardcore Southside Chicago Irish Notre Dame fans. They're saying I can make the decision, and I knew that was a bunch of crap right from the beginning. But they said you're going to make the decision. It's all up to you. And so I went there, went on a visit, and the next morning, they went out with the coaches and their wives and did the social thing. And I wake up the next morning, go down, and they're like, "So when are you going to commit?" I thought this was my decision. They're like, "No, you're going to Notre Dame." So the rest is history.
No, but for anyone that doesn't know, the name of your book is A View from Center. I know that if we go to your Twitter page at Grunny61, the link is in the bio there for anyone. It's on pre-order right now?
Yeah, it's on pre-order. You can just go to timgrunhard, all one word, .com, and you can go to pre-order. It's been great. The Chiefs Kingdom and really football fans, they're just so awesome. Man, I'm so blessed to have been drafted with the Kansas City Chiefs, which was another crazy deal, which I put in the book. The 49ers called me the day of the draft, said, "Hey, listen, we're going to take you in the first round." And I was like, wait a minute. I mean, I was like a fourth or fifth round guy, and in the pre-draft publications. And I'm like, yeah, sure, that's great. So I'm sitting there, and they called and said, "Hey, just want to make sure this is a number, be ready for our call." And then all of a sudden the pick came up, this is Dexter Carter, wide receiver from Florida State. And they call right away, and they're like, "Okay, we're going to take you in the second round." I'm like, "Sure, whatever, man. I just want to get drafted." And then phone rang about half hour, 45 minutes later, it was the Kansas City Chiefs. And they drafted me, 40th pick, and had no conversation, had no idea where Kansas City was. Like you said, I was like, where is this place? But man, it's just so blessed to be able to go there and play football and stay in the organization for 11 years. And on a side note, we're talking about Tyreek Hill a little bit earlier. I understand. I really do. It's about money. You got to make the money while you can. But there's something just so cool about playing for one team and having your life intertwined and woven with the community and with the organization, and know that this is your family. The Chiefs are my family. They are my second family. When I go to Arrowhead, it's like going to my second home, and it's just so awesome to have that ability to know that, listen, I played 11 years for this organization, gave everything I possibly could, and now they repaid me with a Ring of Honor Hall of Fame, and I was able to write a book about it. It's just so great.
It is so special. In the salary cap era of how things are played now, it's just so rare. Like I live in New England, born and raised here, so for me to see and I want Tom Brady to have all the success in the world, even though he's had more than his fair share. Just to see him in the other uniform, just like you playing with Joe Montana wearing a Chiefs helmet or Marcus Allen wearing it, it's like this. Just you wish that guys wouldn't have to do that, particularly guys that have done 10+ years with the team. So I couldn't agree more. I think it's so cool that your story worked out the way that it did.
Well, then a little bit about that Belichick Patriot way, and the Chiefs are kind of doing that now. They one of the things that Belichick would always do is he would have a superstar or two, other than Tom Brady now, and other than Patrick Mahomes. So let's put those guys in a whole different category. When you get to that point where you're 29 or 30 and you may just be getting up to that peak and then going down the other way, that's when you go ahead and you let them go and let them go somewhere else, and you get all those picks and you rebuild. So I think Andy Reid's taking a little bit of page out of Belichick's world. So the Chiefs learned a little bit from New England. Hopefully they have the kind of success New England had all the way through the 2000s.
Yeah, they're in prime position to do it. So we will see. Tim, I got to ask, there's so much about your story. We don't have enough time in the rest of the year for me to hit everything that I want, let alone like the time we have on this call. So just real quick, you go to Notre Dame, national championship team. And by the way, phenomenal Coach Holt's impression. I couldn't overlook that. But so it's not to say that you came in like some scrub to the NFL. Obviously there was first round potential for you, even if publication said otherwise. So for you to come in with everything that you did, I just want to ask from the jump. You already mentioned him, Mike Webster, and I want to throw in Coach Mudd, who is just one of the best ever. Can you just talk a little bit about both characters as you just focusing now on how you become maybe the man you are off the field, but particularly an even better athlete, how those guys were able to rub off on you?
Yeah, let's start with Coach Howard Mudd. He worked me out in the combine. I was lucky enough to be in his group in the combine, and we built a nice relationship. So I think that really helped me to get drafted with the Chiefs eventually. Howard was an unbelievable technician, and that's what I needed. I was kind of a grinder. I was kind of a guy that's an overachiever. I was going to do whatever it possibly took to get my job done, but I wasn't very good fundamentally and technique wise. And Howard Mudd really changed my life with understanding that half a step is so important in offensive line play. Hand placement is so important in offensive line play. Getting your head in the right spot on a zone run is so important. And then also learning the offense and understanding the scheme in which you're trying to implement. As a center, you are responsible for making calls and getting the offensive line and the running backs most of the time into kind of the scheme of what you're trying to do, whether it's a run or pass. And Howard would tell me all the time, listen, you're going to be wrong. All right. You're going to make some mistakes, but make them with conviction and make them with confidence, because if you don't have confidence and you don't have conviction, they won't listen to you. So I would come off and they said that was a wrong call. I said, listen, I called it. That's what we're doing. And I was a rookie, and I'm talking to Dave Lutz and John Alt and Richard Baldinger and, these guys, and they're looking at me like, listen, you little rookie punk. I'm like, listen, we're going to do it this way. And Howard would back me up. And it just gave me so much confidence. And then I was lucky enough, the next coach I had was Alex Gibbs. And Alex Gibbs was unbelievable, just understanding schemes and defenses. So I was weaned with Howard Mudd and techniques and fundamentals. And then had Alex Gibbs, who was just so smart as far as understanding the schemes and the defenses and what they're going to do by looks and shades and everything else. So it was a very, very great blessing for me to play for those two. And then Mike Webster, Webby, he took me under his wing. The very first time I met him, I walked up to him and literally, and he just looked so beat down. I mean, he was just tired. And he said, listen, kid, my job is to get you ready to play and get you ready to play right now. This isn't a year project. This isn't a 2-year project. This is a 1-game project. And Mike was there for me. I would sit next to him in the meeting room and ask him questions and take notes with him. And on the field, he would teach. I never played center. I mean, I was a guard in college. And all of a sudden, Howard Mudd walked out to me in the locker room and said, here's a football, you're playing center. And I was like, okay. I had no idea what to do or even how to hold the ball. And fast forward to, having Mike Webster there as a mentor. And Mike, I went to his house for Thanksgiving with my wife. When my father passed away my rookie year, he was the first one to call me. He raised money for my mom. I mean, we probably didn't need that, but he said, you know what, listen, every little bit helps. I'm going to raise some money for your mom to help pay for the funeral. That's just the way that guy was. And so I was just so blessed to have Mike in my life. And, I saw the movie Concussion, which I wish I hadn't seen, but I did see it. And I don't know how much of it of truth or whatever, it's false or whatever. But I always feel that, man, I could have done more for him. If I had to do it all over again, I would have, kind of lost track, just like you're playing and all of a sudden the guy goes away and it's hard to keep track and it's hard to stay in contact. But I have stayed in contact with his son Garrett, and I've been talking with him and trying to help him out with certain things. But the one thing that I learned, and this is kind of how I'll leave it with Mike, is I had the opportunity to go and do some color for NFL and color maybe for college football, but I decided to go coach because I wanted to pay it back. I wanted to give a kid an opportunity, and I coached in NFL Europe. I coached in college. I coached in high school. I love the high school level because you can touch those kids and give them an opportunity to use football as a vehicle to have success, whether go to college or just learn lessons, the microcosm of life, work down situations you got to convert. And I learned that from Mike Webster. So every time I try to help out a young man who is playing football for me, I said, I'm doing this for Mike Webster.
That's awesome. Nothing more needs to be said. But if I can just ask a little bit about that fourth down conversion, when you think about it, and this is as broadly as possible, when you're in those fourth down moments in life, what are some of your backbones, your principles, things that you think about that help you govern what you need to do, how you need to go about certain things when it's crunch time?
Well, and to use Lou Holtz again, and I'm going to use the accent.
Please do.
He used to talk about pride, and pride is Personal responsibility and daily excellence. So I try to do everything I do with pride is personal responsibility and daily excellence. What am I doing in my life to give myself the best opportunity to have success? And the other thing, other than pride, which I think is so important, you got to get out of your comfort zone. You cannot grow when you're comfortable. And that's one of the things that I talk about a bunch in the book is, my father, from the first day I walked out in the backyard with him throwing a football, for better or for worse, I was always uncomfortable. And it wasn't uncomfortable was an abuse wise, but he wanted me to be the best I possibly could be. And he would, and I always strove to prove that I could do it. And it was always just out of reach. But that's what makes you grow. So to have pride, personal responsibility, daily excellence, and stay uncomfortable. Don't get comfortable. Challenge yourself every day. I mean, Tim Grunhard writing a football book is as crazy of an idea as I've ever had. And I enjoyed it. And I'm so happy that I was able to get it done and share the love and the commitment that I had with the guys I played with, the coaches I played with, and the people that are in my life that I talk about in the book. It is just so awesome to remind yourself how blessed and how lucky you are, not only to play in the NFL, not only to be a Kansas City Chiefs, but to be surrounded by awesome people that help you to shape your life.
Man, there's almost nothing more that needs to be said. That's so. Despite all the Kansas City talk, seemingly the Notre Dame streak has run very strong through all of this.
It has. My wife went to Notre Dame, and her father went to Notre Dame, and her grandfather went to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my parents, my dad was a Chicago policeman. My mom was a nurse. They didn't go to college, or my mom went to college, but was in nursing college. My daughter and my son both earned a letter at Notre Dame. So we have 4 generations of letter winners. My wife's grandfather and father, and then me, and then my kids. So we love University of Notre Dame. It's in our blood. So blessed to go there. And like I said before, I fell into this situation where, Lou Holtz left Minnesota and went to Notre Dame, or I would never have met my wife. My kids probably would never went to Notre Dame. So it's just so crazy in life that, not to be, talking about God and all that, but God puts you in certain situations, I believe, and it gives you opportunities, and it's up to you to take advantage of those opportunities. And I just have been blessed that He's put me in such great opportunities I was able to take advantage of.
Absolutely. So I always want to ask about Marty, and I'm sure that, anyone, I bet you wrote a bunch about him in the book.
I did.
So, and one thing I want to say about him is one of the best coaching trees ever, just by looking at some of the early names, to have Joe Pendry on the staff, but I mean, a young Cower, Arians, Dungy, Herm Edwards, Al Saunders, Mike McCarthy. It's really insane. And everywhere he goes, I've never met someone that ever had a bad thing to say about who he was as a person. So I guess when you want to talk about Coach Holtz, Coach Schottenheimer, what is it that the best do? Of course they have to everyone has a different way about them and how they do it. But at the end of the day, what is it that the best what is it in their makeup that allows them to have that chief level of success?
Well, first of all, I always thought that Coach Holtz and Marty Schottenheimer did a great job of criticizing the performance and not the performer. And that's just so important. Listen, you're not going to do everything right. But once you start becoming personal and criticizing the performer, they shut you off. And there's too many coaches nowadays that do that, where, they coach with that personal kind of animosity, where if a kid does something wrong, there's something wrong with his character. Well, that's not true. When people make mistakes, you criticize the performance. The performer, he's trying as best as he can. And if he's not, then it's your job to find a way to get him to do that. And that's what I think Coach Holtz and Coach Schottenheimer did really a good job of, is really being teachers. Marty and both Lou, but Marty especially. Marty, he always said, I'm an English major. I wanted to be an English teacher. And, he thought that coaches were teachers. And that's what I tried to do. And I've taken a lot of that from Marty Schottenheimer, of teaching the game. And even with radio, the reason why I love to do radio is because if I could share one or two things about the game coming up this weekend that you're sitting there and you can enjoy just a little bit more, well, yeah, Grunny said that, look for this and it happened, or look for that. That was cool. That was part of the process. That's what we're all about. I mean, football has given me so much. I mean, it's just given me so much, and trying to give back to, coaching and learning from Marty and learning from Lou. I really only had two head coaches in my life, three with my high school coach, but Lou Holtz for all 4 years, and then Marty Schottenheimer for 9 of the 11 years, and then Gunther Cunningham for the last couple, and loved Gunther. He just was just swallowed up with so much responsibility that I think if he gave it a couple more years, he would have been a great head coach. But just so blessed to really have those two guys, Marty Schottenheimer and Lou Holtz, who have shaped a lot of the way that I carry myself in everyday activities and everything I do.
Well, as we get close to wrapping up, I know that you give back in one other way. You're involved in a foundation. Do you want to just speak a little bit more about what that's all about?
Yeah. So Derek Thomas and Derek came in a year before me, and he was a first-round draft choice and a defensive player from Alabama. And I was a second-round draft choice and an offensive player from Notre Dame. You would think there's no way these two are going to get along. We became fast friends. First of all, we had the same agent to kind of start out. And then, he kind of, like Webby, kind of took me under his wing. And, there was times when those veteran old defensive guys were giving me a lot of flack, and Derek would stick up for me. So I never forgot that. You fast forward, he did a lot of great events and a lot of great things while he was playing for the Kansas City Chiefs until he passed away, and I was always involved with those. But his charity, Third and Long, is still going. And I was asked last year to be on the board. So to me, I thought about it because I got so many things going on, but I figured, listen, if Derek was here, would I say no to Derek? And the answer is absolutely not. So why would I say no now? So, every time I do something, or we try to put something together, I always think in the back of my mind, what would Derek do in this situation? And just a great guy who had a big heart. And the foundation is still going on, and it basically helps inner city kids to go to better schools, for lunch programs, for needs for school supplies, and then other things. But more importantly, it takes care of kids and gives them an opportunity to use school as a vehicle to better themselves for the rest of their lives.
It's awesome. Well, I'm certainly glad that you have your hands full, because everything that you're doing is it's pushing everything forward. It's giving back, it's helping the next people, it's sharing your experiences in a way that is enjoyable, but to pull things from it that you can actually, think about how you do things. I think it's the highest level that any of us can strive for.
Well,
so, Tim, as we close this out, I just got a couple quick questions for you.
Sure.
I call it the gauntlet.
Uh-oh.
What's most important, having the number one offense or number one defense?
Well, the NFL is all about scoring. There's one person that is more important than any other person on that field, and that's the quarterback. So I think it's more important to have the number one offense and put points up, because you see a lot of teams have great defenses that can't go and score, and they're not going to win. So even to this day, as much as defenses have become so important in the NFL, it's still a quarterback-driven league. So the offense is definitely the most important thing.
Fair enough. Players or scheme, which is most important?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. You got to set your schemes around the Jimmies and Joes that you have, because if you try to take those Jimmies and Joes and fit them in to your X's and O's and into your schemes, it's just not going to work. So the great coaches, they look at what they have, and then they are able to put together a scheme in order to use those players to the best of their ability. So to answer your question, Jimmies and Joes every time.
Now, you have so many, but when I say favorite football memory, is there one or two that immediately jump out at you?
Yeah, my favorite memory, we were playing in the Orange Bowl against Colorado. They were number one, we were number three. We had 9 minutes left in the game. I think we were up by maybe 2 or 3, and we got the ball about inside the 20-yard line, and we ran the ball 21 times in a row and scored a touchdown and ran the clock out. That was the greatest drive I've ever been involved with. And if you're an offensive lineman, well, those are the drives you had. And I remember Coach McCartney on the sideline screaming at his defensive line coach and defensive coordinator, "We got to get a stop. How come we can't stop these guys?" And we just stood there and said, "Okay, here we come again." 20-some runs in a row. I mean, it was not one pass. And we went down the field, took up 9 minutes and scored and won the game, beat the #1 team. Unfortunately, Miami beat Alabama, and they went from 2-1 because they beat us early in the year. But that's a whole different story. But it was great to beat the #1 team in the Orange Bowl. And then the next year is when they had the Rocket Phantom clip. I wasn't in that game, but everybody forgets about the first Colorado Notre Dame game in the Orange Bowl. They all know about the Phantom clip game the next year, but that was my favorite football memory.
That's awesome. Now, pregame, anything you had to do?
Yeah, I am very superstitious. I would get to the stadium at the same time every day. I'd get taped at the same time. I'd put my socks on at the same time. I would put my shoulder pads on at the same time. I would do the taping on my hands. I would go to a certain spot on the field, put my helmet there before during warm-ups. Yeah, I was a crazy stickler for superstition. I don't know why that happened, but I figured it worked. I played 120 some games in a row, 169 games, so I sticked with it. But yeah, you're talking to a guy that from the first second they drove into the stadium till you walked off the field after a game, I sat and did the same things over and over and over again for 11 years.
That's the way I'd be. That's why I'm laughing.
But the fact is, I don't know why this happened. I told the equipment managers, I'm never taking my stool out of my locker. I would grab a chair and put it in there. And I don't know why I did that. But for 11 years, that stool never moved out of that locker. And then, so when let's say Missouri was playing KU at Arrowhead, I would tie my stool into the locker so they couldn't take it out. I mean, that's crazy. I guess, you know what? I just told America, I know a lot of people watch the show. Yeah, that's loopy stuff that offensive linemen do.
Well, normally I end on best piece of advice, but I think you crushed it earlier with what you talked about. So if I can change it up a little bit, nose tackle, D tackle, when you think back on it all, was there anyone in particular that maybe it either gave you fits or it was just something that was a matchup that you really look forward to?
Yeah, it would be Cortez Kennedy. I loved Cortez. We were really good. There he is. Love the guy. Died too soon. Broke my heart when he died. We battled twice a year for 11 years in the NFL and 3 times in college when he was at Miami and Notre Dame. And we just hit it off. But every game we played against each other, we played hard. We played physical. Maybe a cheap shot here or there. But just love the guy, and he was a special person in my heart. And then of course Ted Washington, who was a man mountain out there, 6'9", 340, and then you got guys like Howie Long. See, the thing that in the 90s, the vogue thing to do would to take the best pass rusher in third down and long situations, put him over the center. So Reggie White, Charles Mann, Howie Long, you name it, they all lined up straight ahead on shotgun, and then everybody's fanning out. And I was one-on-one with those guys in the middle, and I hated pass protection. I'd rather run block every day of the week. So played against a lot of great guys. But if you're going to ask me one, it would definitely be Cortez Kennedy.
That's awesome. Well, again, for everyone, the book is A View from Center. It's certainly available if people go to your social media. And so for one last time, where can everyone find it? Where are the handles?
Yeah, so I'm at Grunny 61, and it's just Tim Grunhard, Grunhard. I always say it's Grunhard with a G in front of it, and then .com. If you go there, in fact, if you order there right now, I'll send you a signed copy. So yeah, so it'd be and then you can get it on Amazon, and you can get them on different sites too. Listen, if you have an opportunity, you're looking for a fun book to read, a little bit about a young guy from the south side of Chicago, just trying to do whatever he can to kind of get out of the shadow of his older brother and kind of hope please his father and get a scholarship to Notre Dame. And then all of a sudden you're in Kansas City and playing there. It's a fun book. It was a great book. Talk about Rich Gannon, talk about Dan Saliamua, talk about Bill Moss, talk about Marcus Allen, Derek Thomas, Neil Smith, all those guys. And there's a bunch more in there. I'm probably forgetting 4 or 5 guys, but it's just so much fun to talk about those guys, and I'm so blessed to play with them.
Well, Grunny, can't thank you enough for taking the time. Really appreciate it, and I hope everyone goes out and orders the book.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for what you do, man. This is cool. It's fun to talk to you, and really not just talk about, you know, football stuff, but talk about life. It's just so important. Like I said before, football and sports are a microcosm of life. I tell everybody, I go play sports, because you're going to have challenges in your life, whether it's in marriages or raising kids or jobs, and you learn so many lessons from sports. So go out there and play sports. It's good for you.